So me and a couple of friends have this thing called TheArtsInHeart on Facebook, and we are live every 10 p.m. on Friday East African time and 8 p.m. CET,
where we'll be discussing shifting gears and adjusting to new challenges. Our challenges of focus will be COVID-19 and social media and its effect on so many things matters social issues.
Around 75% of Kenyans are connected to electricity. How does that translate to the percentage of Kenyans that have access to the internet?
Wasani bana, we need to know how vitu zina change. The digital service tax imekuwa introduced na the government of Kenya. How does that affect your life as a creator?
On top of that, yours truly will be handling also the mental effects of COVID-19 on all of us in terms of losing so much in the pandemic.
What happened to the teachers that were laid off during the pandemic and the people that lost their jobs?
Even as students go up in arms against their teachers, we invite Mr. Robert Atiaya, Kiambu High School Deputy Principal, who will be discussing this and many more with Teacher Noreen.
Tonight, 10 p.m. East African time, 8 p.m. CET on Facebook Live, The Art in Heart. Make a point, set your reminders, usisahau. Live, I'll see you.
Indeed, it is a very, very good evening. Thank you for joining us. My name is Likuyani Eli. Tonight we set pace and we are shifting gears. To shift these gears, I want to invite you to be part of the conversation. If you want to be part of the live show, send us a small text on the comment section, and of course, we will be able to invite you to the cast. To help me navigate through these waters tonight, allow me to introduce you, my co-host, Nyanduko Nyabuto. That is Nyanduko 254. Nyanduko, good evening and welcome to the cast.
Good evening, Eli. And yeah, for a moment there, I was worried. I was wondering, where are you? But I'm glad you're here. How are you doing? I hope everyone that is watching had a fantastic day, and it's about to be an interesting show. Thank you, Eli.
Thank you. Karibu sana. You know, these things do happen and sometimes you might be caught unawares. But of course, we have it sorted and we'll be launching the show in a few. Allow me to introduce the rest of the panelists tonight. We have Victoria Nkatha all the way in Denmark. Good evening, Victoria.
Good evening, Ellie. How are you?
I'm great, looking gorgeous
And
in your
hello,
golden
Nyanduko.
attire.
Thank you. Hello, Nyanduko. How are you?
I'm good, Vicky. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you.
Karibu sana, Victoria. We will be joining Victoria in a few moments. Allow me to bring in Teacher Noreen, also in Nairobi, Kenya.
Hi, everyone. It's good to see you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I hope we're going to have an amazing discussion as always. Thank you.
Definitely, we plan to have a great, great discussion with you. And Nyanduko, what do you have for us in your bag full of cookies?
Okay. So as we all know that today we are discussing the shifting gears and adjusting to new challenges. And as we all know, most of the new challenges are basically centered around COVID-19. COVID-19 happened. None of us were prepared for it. At least most of us were not prepared for it. It just happened. And now suddenly everyone has to wash their hands. Everyone has to have a small bottle of sanitizer. around and everyone has to, wear a mask on our faces. We're not used to it. And the only time you enjoy your entire face is right now, These are some of the things that we had to adjust, the normal life and the small nitty-gritties that we had to adjust to, including that kids were supposed to stay out of school for an entire year. We are, personally have not moved on from that. I know kids who literally forgot how to write their names. And it is not even funny because some were just starting school, and we have a scenario of people who are laid off from work. That is a sad situation. Now, how do we adjust from what happened and how do we move on? How do we move on from this point where COVID-19 happened? It is here to stay. Now, how do we move from this and how do we adjust to these new challenges that are here to stay?
Those are pertinent questions that we'll be seeking to address tonight. And of course, we have Victoria. Victoria, what do you have in store for us and what is your point of answer tonight?
My point is mainly talking about the mental aspects of COVID-19, what this has brought about in terms of the results of COVID-19. We're going also to dig a bit deep into the social media aspects, where we're going to discuss a few things about artists, and we're going to also discuss a few things about the emerging of entrepreneurs and much, much more.
Thank you, Victoria. We cannot afford to miss out on the most important part of this discussion. And Teacher Noreen tells me she has something. Teacher Noreen, what's up for discussion tonight?
Today we are looking at how the schools have just reopened, and now the cases that have come up, depending regarding the cases that we have received. That is attempt to murder, pregnancy cases, and so many things that are related to COVID-19 or the 9 months period that kids have been at home. So it is going to be a sad story, but it is a story worth to listen so that we avoid some of these things, or we guide the teenagers that are still that may be coming from school, that is the day scholars, or rather the boarding schools. It is our role as teachers to offer guiding and counseling to all these students. Yeah.
So as we offer the guiding and counseling, later on we'll be joined by DJ Nick, who will be taking us through the transitioning of the social media and how it has affected the way politics is done. Yes, tonight we discuss a little bit of politics. And we'll be focusing on the Pearl of Africa, that is the land of Matoke. If you may wish, I know this kind of subject resonates well. When I mention Matoke, I see Nyanduko 254 smiling because it rings a bell to somewhere close home. How about that, Nyanduko? Kindly, your microphone, please.
Okay, please have control over my mic because I tend to do this. I tend to forget. So I was saying I love Matoke. When you mention Matoke, you touch my I'm overwhelmed at this point because I love Matoke. Now, yeah, we're going to tackle a number of issues. We're going to move from education to politics to social media. It is going to be a beehive of activities happening here. So stay tuned and be with us throughout this whole conversation. And, make your contributions here and there. And we're going to mention them and we're going to talk about them.
Awesome. So let's get the gear engaged. And for everybody that is watching this cast, on this day, we have changed a few things. We will not be airing this cast on the private page. However, we have this public page that everybody can be able to join the cast in order for us to consolidate all our viewers and have some things under check. And I think it will be kind enough to just remind friends who've been going to the other page that we are here on TheArtsInHeart / Likuyani Eli, and of course on YouTube, that is TheArtsInHeart official. So let's get started. And Nyanduko, the reopening of schools. What are things that we expected that never came to the light of the day in terms of online learning? Vicky, please.
Sorry?
Go ahead.
Okay. We will talk about that. Now, I have a question, and my question is not for any of you, really. It is just for the Ministry of Education. When everyone was at home for the 1 year, what was happening with our systems? Well, why were we so focused on BBI and other things and literally forgot that kids were supposed to go back to school? And when Magoha says that kids are supposed to go back to school, how does that translate to the actual going back to school? How many schools have since reopened, and how many kids are still at home because their schools are not reopened? When you talk about reopening of schools, and what is shown on the news is basically what is happening in Mangu, what is happening in the lands. But what happens in that school called Chandumba in Chabakali that has not reopened because the teachers are not aware? What happened to that school that was turned into someone started rearing chicken in the school because they realized it is better to have chicken than to actually have an actual school because it is not bringing in the money? What happened to? There's just so much that we had time to prepare for, that I honestly feel that the ministry and everyone that was involved did not adequately prepare for the reopening of schools, and they're just doing it as a test run because they took the class 4s and class 8s back and they thought it worked. And now we're in a space where we're not sure if the reopening of schools is actually a good thing. What happens to the schools that have the scholars and borders and the pandemic, really? And we have kids who go home every day and we're saying we are trying to keep them safe. What happens to this kid who cannot keep a mask on for the entire day? Were we really, really prepared for the reopening of schools? Were we?
And that's a question that I will be asking the guest that has just joined us to help us go through it. And that is none other than the Deputy Principal, Kiambu High School, Mr. Robert Atiaya. Good evening, Robert, if you can hear me. Welcome to the cast. And Nyanduko has laid a few foundations for us. If you may engage me, sir, while we're ready for the reopening of the schools. Robert, if you can hear me, I think we have your mic muted. If you can kindly turn on the microphone. Meanwhile, as we get to fix Mr. Atiaya to address this question, I want to again engage Teacher Noreen, who is with us to help us through the subject. Teacher Noreen, were we ready for the reopening of the schools from your view?
Thank you so much. I feel like most schools were not, or rather, most institutions were not ready for the reopening of schools. Especially, I'm sorry to say this, especially public schools, the way Nyanduko mentioned earlier, because when you find a primary school in the village that, like, let's say the Chandumba primary school, that is a public school, and so they don't have everything in place in terms of sanitizers, in terms of spacing. We were not even ready. Look at the scenario where we are having children learning under a shed in a tree. That means, like, all this time we've been at home, it was enough. It was enough for the government, or rather, to come up with the constructions of classes, and that, so that at the end of the day, we are looking at what will happen tomorrow when kids will come back to school. And so we are at this point, and now we are telling teachers to go outside the classroom and conduct classes under a shed, so that to consider the spacing to 1 meter apart, all those stuff that we are trying to prevent, or we are trying to control this disease. So for me, it doesn't really make sense when other people are watching Kenyans going through this, and it's just us that we are given enough time to plan for this, but we were not able to do it. And now we just want to rush in with the ideas. Okay, in March, rain is coming. Where will these kids go? Where will the teachers conduct their classes from? Then we are also looking at having maybe a class 8 student and a grade 4 student sitting under the same place or in the same roof, and now they have different environment when it comes to when it comes to when it comes to class decorations, the academic charts that are on the wall. Like, they'll not make sense. A reproductive organ to a grade 1 student will not even make sense in that structure, because
Well,
like
um,
it will really confuse people. You understand?
well, Noreen, as we actually go deeper into this discussion, I mean, the whole point is for us to be able to adjust the new normal. And as you quickly put it, that students are learning under the trees. However, we have the Minister of Education, Mr. Magoha, who said that it is very healthy to actually study under the trees. Whereas across the borders, we have Rwanda that has told us they've been building over 22,000 kind of classrooms to accommodate the new situation. Is this a matter of unpreparedness from the education sector, or is this a matter of priorities being set wrong?
This is just a matter of priorities and preparation from the government side. They would have seen this a long time ago and sensed danger, and in the future, then they start working from the time they had. Even the little money that they could, at least I know, akungekosa hiyo pesa kidogo to cater for this, because rain is coming. The weather will not be the same every time. So what will happen? What will happen to the kids? So they better suffer from malaria, or they better suffer from pneumonia, but like, it doesn't make sense for me. It doesn't.
Yes, Nori, you said it doesn't make sense. However, I'm actually trying to bring in somebody that is dealing with the higher education level, that is for the high school. However, we're having some technical problems connecting to him, but we will actually make him come on the program tonight. As we continue getting Mr. Robert online, Mr. Robert, kindly do not mute your microphone. Otherwise, we do not have control when you do that. Kindly leave your microphone unattended, then we can be able to control from our end. So, Robert, if you can hear me, I would like to bring you into the discussion and try to understand, were the schools ready for reopening? Because we have these challenges we are facing. However, were we ready for the reopening of schools from you where you stand? These things happen, and Nyanduko, please, were we ready?
I still think and I still insist that we were not ready for the schools. Now, a fact is, at least 1/3 of children were unable to access the online learning that was taking place. Now, how efficient was the online learning, for example? I had a little bit of a taste of it, I had some kids I was teaching online, and it was very hard for most of them to actually find a device to stream on, or even find the internet for it, because it is costly. The school was not providing the internet. A few universities were, like I know for a fact Nairobi University and the Kenya School of Law were providing internet for their learners. But even with the internet, let's say, what happens when you don't have a device to stream your academics on? Now, I was teaching a class where my learners, most of them could not access an actual device to stream a class on, because for a class to run, you need your learner's camera to be on for you to actually know that it is your learner who is in class. Now, we have a situation where a learner cannot access a device, so they have to move from home, go to anyone else's home, to someone else that can access a device, so that they can actually attend a class. How convenient, how reliable, how effective will that be? Having around 4 or 5 learners using one device, were the teachers even prepared for this online thing? We have teachers who have been teaching, who have been teaching since the 1980s, 90s, and are still teaching up to now because they are not retired. Who taught them? Who gave them the computer literacy that is needed to actually join a Zoom meeting, to actually do a StreamYard meeting like this? Because we are the young, and we're struggling with StreamYard. We do not know when to mute and unmute. Now you have to you want to tell me there's a teacher who's 45 that has a smartphone and does not know how to post a status, has no idea what that is. Their phone is for calling, and that is it. And now you want to tell them. You will tilt your phone, and we were not prepared, Eli. And we had all the time to prepare. That is the sad bit. How we moved from one laptop per student to 1 tree per classroom, I am taking my time. I'm yet to digest that. How we moved from every class 1 kid will have a laptop. How we moved from that to we'll be learning under trees. And when Rwanda was building the classes and preparing for the pandemic and getting ready for the reopening of schools, we were giving the BBI narrative everywhere. And that means we had all the time. We just chose our priorities wrong. And that is the sad bit, because we keep saying that the youth are the leaders of tomorrow. What are we doing to mold them? What are we doing? We encourage them to get into kazi kwa vijana and get used to money. And those who are privileged had the time to watch all the movies on Netflix, and some even led to alleged murders. It is sad. It is sad. It is very sad that we are actually not prepared for this. We were not ready for the pandemic. That's excusable.
That you said we were not prepared. Okay, and I get that. However, let me just quickly go through this again so that I can make sense out of it. We were prepared for everything else except our education. Does that mean, Noreen, that as we said earlier, our priorities are wrong? And if our priorities are wrong, what is the right way out of this situation?
Well, we should always learn to plan earlier. Good planning brings better results. And because of our poor planning, then this is what we have to face. And it is so sad that we are facing this. It is so sad that we are making our children go through this. They do not understand what is going on, but we are at a better position to understand this has happened. But will you explain to a 7-year-old that because of a child will ask you, and teacher, why are we going outside? I don't resist that. Outside is a conducive environment. It is a good environment for refreshment and allowing children to have a different environment so that we can instill knowledge in them. But again, we have to look at the challenges that will come with it. So for me, I just feel like we need to plan ourselves early enough, adequately, so that we can realize a better result at the end of the day.
Thank you. We are being notified by Vicky that we have DJ Nick online. But before I bring in DJ Nick, let me just engage Mr. Robert. If you can hear me again, Robert, good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Finally, we have this live and kicking. First things first, Mr. Robert, kindly introduce yourself, and if you can help us finish this topic of preparedness of our schools. Were we ready for the reopening?
Robert Atsiai is my name, and I'm a teacher at Kiambu High School, principal. So I think when it comes to preparedness for reopening of schools, yes, we are prepared, though, to be candid, partly prepared. There are things which should have been done, which have not been done, but we are making do with what we have. So I believe going forward, maybe we will do the preparation and work with the students and just make sure they are safe while in school.
As things stand, Mr. Robert, and thank you for the very political correct language. As things stand in school, what is, as your capacity, and I'm not trying to get you into any sort of trouble, but at your capacity, would you say you have enough space for your students, especially if you're told things have evolutionized from 1 laptop per child to 1 tree per child?
Okay. I think when it comes to the issue of space, we may not have that space because I think when I was on and off, I could hear one of my colleagues saying that there is no room, actually. And like in a school where I am, we are 1,400. And with 1,400 students with no extra classrooms or dormitories built, then it means the students are back to what they were. And when you hear like a country like Rwanda have done 22,000 classrooms in the COVID period, and Kenya, we are moving to trees, then it means there's some lack of planning which we don't have as a country. But I believe going forward, there are men and women who are coming up, and I think they should take up the challenge and see to it that planning is done and execution is also done for the city.
Mr. Atia, as you're very passionate about education, and I know this because I've known you for some time, allow me to engage you further and understand this. We are ready, probably not so ready, and we are working with what we have because we have to move forward. Do we start pointing fingers because I do not know how the budget allocation works for students, especially for these funds that come from government? Is it just allocated to, let's say, the stationaries, or do we have some allocations that are actually created for amenities? Robert, are you still with me? Okay, switch gears, and we will be bringing him back to answer that question. So back to you, Nyanduko, Matters Education.
I was sitting here waiting for you to unmute my mic. I decided to do it myself. Now, as I was saying, and as Sarah has clearly put it, there was no preparedness. We had all the time. And that is the sad bit, because we had all the time, didn't do anything, did not even look like we were anticipating the reopening of schools. And most of these leaders do not have their children going to the schools, to the small schools, and knowing what is actually happening. The things they put up on the news about the social distancing, how the kids have distanced, it is not happening in the local schools. That is not your situation for ground. For ground, which will be totally different. And that is the sad bit, because we had all the time to get ready for this, to prepare for this, to actually, I am a teacher. What happens to the teachers that were laid off during the COVID period, that have not yet gotten anything else to do, that have resulted to farming? And we actually have teachers that were not even laid off, that have found it actually better to do other things, to farm, because we have teachers whose salaries were not paid since schools closed. They were in private schools. Now we have a situation where the private schools have reopened, and those who have enough space, we actually do not have, most schools do not have this space we are talking about, because nothing, literally nothing changed in the schools, because the classrooms are the same. We have the same number of students, unless we were anticipating that learners, I'm sorry to say, were probably going to drop out or die. There is no prepared. We were not ready for this. And it is sad, because if we prepared for this enough, like Rwanda did, like other places did, this will not be something we're discussing right now. Kenya is not, we're not supposed to be in that place. Our economy does not even allow us to be in that place where we are discussing about putting learners under trees. It is outrageous, and totally outrageous.
We call it outrageous, Nyanduko. And again, I understand you're passionate about this. And I will not let Robert sleep with this, because some parents need to understand, because you're at an administration level, you could be having more light on this. Do you get funds for stationaries, or do you also get some allocations to deal with amenities? In this case, toilets, that's latrines. Do you get money for the classrooms? Do you get money for the dormitories? Or is this a one-time budget once the school is built and that's the end of the story?
The Ministry of Education provides some budget which deals with tuition materials. It also deals with things like infrastructure, though the money is given to schools on request, especially money for infrastructure is given to schools on request. So every school has to do a budget and a proposal for whatever projects they need to do and pass it on to the Ministry of Education, who approve, then provide the funds for that.
In this case, before I know you want to, but let me just allow me to interject. Does that mean that our respective schools did not give this budget to the schools, or what went wrong? Why don't we have classrooms?
The bureaucracy in getting that money is actually what makes many schools not go for that money, because it takes a long process. But if it was something that was decentralized, maybe something that could be done at the sub-county level, it could be very easy for many schools to do their infrastructural development. But since it is centralized at the Ministry of Education headquarters, then it takes a long time. You have to go through the sub-county director, the county director of education, regional director of education, then to the Ministry of Education headquarters. So it takes quite a bit of time. But if you follow it through, it comes with time.
Engage me further, Mr. Tiaya, and this is my last question on that matter. You've said that there's a bureaucracy. Does that mean probably they do not trust the systems of managing these funds at school level, and that's why every other head has to go through the budget to be approved?
Not that the ministry doesn't trust the process that goes on in schools. I think what it is about is maybe the accounting officer at the ministry needs to approve everything that is being done at the school level. So that is why I think it has to take that long. Otherwise, I believe the ministry trusts the process which goes on in schools by the boards of management and the principals of schools. But maybe, let me just say, this is Kenya. We need to have more clarity on what is supposed to be done at what point, because you find that even some heads of schools do not know actually how to access these funds. So if they knew how to access the funds, then it would be easy for them to ask for that money.
What do you guys go to do in Mombasa during the head and principals meetings at the end of the year? What do you learn there? I mean, you surprised me, Robert.
I'm not a principal yet. I've not gone for that meeting, so I don't know what.
You are almost there. So these are questions I'll ask you once you get your promotion. However, let's switch gears and bring in Nick, DJ Nick. If you can hear me, good evening and welcome to the cast. What do you have for me tonight, Nicholas?
Hey, what's up, everybody? I hope you're doing well. Can you hear me? I hope I have my sound on clear. As it should.
We can get you, but you seem to be surrounded with a lot of music behind you.
Yeah, I got that one sorted out. I hope now you can hear me clearly. Can you?
Okay, Nick. Good evening. And Nick, before we just continue, kindly take us through what will you be handling tonight in our cast?
Well, tonight I'll be talking about, the New Year goals and plans. And, 2020 had us all in isolation and, long periods of reflection due to, the COVID pandemic and the lockdowns. And most of us had time to reflect. So, with the New Year resolutions and the New Year plans, I just want to look at some of the challenges that, creatives should look up to, considering the changes, because, 2021 preceding from 2020, from the isolation and the COVID pandemic. So, even with the New Year goals and our New Year plans, we must look at all the challenges that face us clearly so that we are able to determine how to maneuver through this time. Because trust me, the new normal is not the normal that was in, say, 2016 or 2017. now we are dealing with a lot of issues. Like, for instance, I'll just point out which I'll talk about later on about digital taxation that the government has introduced. It doesn't seem to be good, and times are hard. It's pinching everywhere. So even the government is trying to raise funds from everywhere, including on the digital platform. So that will affect a lot of creatives. So I'll be talking about that to, make creatives understand what are some of the goals that they have right now that will be affected by this new digital taxation. I'll also be talking about the we recently witnessed the former the new president for the United States. I'll just refer, he was impeached for the second time. So we witnessed Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all the social media platforms banning him and putting his account to a complete halt. So also I'll be talking about some of the things that creatives need to check out that they don't engage in so that they don't lose their accounts on Facebook, and some of the things that can lead to people getting clamped down, and challenges that can generally hamper creatives in moving forward and stepping forward in the new year 2021. Eli.
Thank you so much, Nick, for that diversity. As we focus on that topic later on in the cast, allow me to remind us that we have changed and switched our cast from the normal one, and tonight we are broadcasting to you from our official page, that is TheArtsInHeart / Likuyani Eli, and we also have this cast on Responding to Live, and then we have the same cast on YouTube, and that is at The Arts in Heart Official. Back to Teacher Noreen, who is going to take us through the next segment with Mr. Atiaya to look at the intensity of how matters are happening at school as students decide to take it head to head with, of course, their teachers. What is happening at school? But before we do that, we're going to take a short commercial break, and we'll be right back after this studio announcement.
Acha kupigia story ya kangoko fulani kalikuwa kamepotea mtaani. Hiyo siku kumesnow, ikicheki this side, mazee side zote zinafanana, ijui ilifikaje huku na yezi rudi mtaani. Mazee, hii story lilifunza always seek out the seed of triumph in every adversity. Hii kuku ilikuwa imepotea, mazee na feel depressed, defeated, guilty, condemned, ashamed, unworthy. Lakini we don't develop courage by being happy every day. We develop it by surviving difficult times and challenging adversity. So hii kingoko kimepotea, but worthwhile accomplishment yake hiyo siku ilikuwa manzee to stand up to a foreign turkey. Enye ilikuwa jaribu kuifuria, jaribu kuitishia, lakini ngoko ikasimama, ikaiface, ikaamua leo manzee, haraka nimepotea, siwezi ogopa. So that's what ilienda nayo hiyo siku. So nikikut Mandela manzee alisema, courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. Always triumph in your adversity.
Yes, indeed, triumph in your adversities. And of course, I'm going to switch you to Teacher Noreen, who is going to engage us in the next phase with Mr. Atiaya on what is happening in schools. And of course, we have heard about it. But exactly what is the problem? To you, Noreen.
It has now been 15 days. This is the 15th day ever since the schools reopened, or rather after opening schools, that is in January 2021. And we've had so many cases in news. We've watched news, we've heard even via radio. We've noticed that there are so many things that are going on in school, in different schools in Kenya. First of all, we are looking at the case in Kisii High School, where we we heard that there was an attempt of murder. A Form 2, I don't know, was it a boy that was attempting murder to two of their teachers. Then, if that is not enough, we also heard that there is a school in Kwale County that is yesterday. There is also there was also a student that was charged to attempt of felony. And again, in Kisii, there's a school in Mokorero or something, also another case that there was an attempt of murder. So we are looking at all these cases. Those are just the few that we've had. We do not know if there are other cases that are yet to be heard, or rather that are yet to be announced yet. So we really have an impact. There is the longest time kids have been at home, that was 9 months. They have learned a lot, and maybe this could be the reason. From what they learned, this could be the reason that they are doing some of these things in schools, because initially there were no such cases, but now I think the world has just come to another different thing when it comes to learners in school. For my reasoning, I feel like maybe they didn't want to go back to school because they feel like they had already made it, and now even coming back to school, they were forced into doing this. So, Mr. Robert, can you kindly tell us what could be the reason why these cases are too much, and we cannot, like, we don't know what will happen the next time, like even tomorrow we don't know the next case we'll hear about. Even we're also looking at pregnancy cases. By August last year, that was 2020, in Machakos County, we had like over 4,000 pregnancy cases. That was August last year. And now in Nairobi County, there was about 5,000 cases of pregnancies. So those are just the counties that we had. But now we are looking at now all other counties in Kenya. We don't know what happened there. If the cases were at that point during that time, what could be the cases at this moment that kids are going back to school? Maybe, Mr. Robert, I can invite you and I let you tell us more now that you are a disciplinarian, like you're a deputy principal, and now in that matter, you deal with indiscipline cases in school. What do you think about this issue? Karibu sana, Mr. Robert.
Thank you, Noreen, for that. And maybe let me start by saying that the stress levels in the learners is a bit on the higher side, maybe as a result of the challenges that they might have gone through during the COVID-19 period when they were away for the break. And that could have actually led to the way they are reacting to situations when they are faced with them. Looking at the COVID-19 pandemic, when the students were reopening, one of the things which was supposed to be done was psychological debriefing of the learners, where they were supposed to talk about their experiences, maybe whether they were affected directly or indirectly, and how they were coping with it. And maybe if I take a case example of our school, we took the learners through psychological debriefing for 2 days, and they were able to share their experiences and their challenges, their fears, and it looks like it worked because we've not seen any extreme case of somebody trying to overreact to a situation. But talking about the incidences which have been reported in the media, that is, I think, Kisii High School. We have the other school where a boy had a panga and wanted to chop off probably the head of the deputy principal. And I had another one there was in Baringo. I tend to think probably we may not escalate that to a national level, but we need to look at it as the situation demands. Maybe what was happening with this young man in Kisii High School, for him to have kept a knife in his pocket and gone with it to the office. This other child who carried a panga to the deputy principal's office, at what point did he get the panga? And maybe what was going on through his mind? And if I look at it, I want to maybe submit that maybe the pressures that these children have gone through have led them to become very irritable. And therefore, we need, as educators, to look for alternative ways of instilling discipline, alternative ways of talking to them. In that way, we're able to capture their feelings and then reintegrate them back into school. Maybe some of them were even married. So probably they're looking at you and they're wondering, you are just a man like me. So what is it that you want to tell me? So I can show you that I'm also a man. Some of them were working. Therefore, they have lost the income they were getting. So if somebody has lost the source of income, and then you're telling them to get back to school, it will require a lot of wisdom on the part of the educator to bring them back to school. You mentioned something about pregnancy. There are so many children who have become mothers. There are those who are still maybe yet to deliver. We have boys who have become fathers in the process. And all these are people, these are stressful situations. Children who have children. It is a stress on its own. We've not had what is coming from the girls' schools yet, because probably there's those who are going through postpartum depression, and if a trigger is just brought their way, they may react. So we don't know what is actually going to happen. But I think we need to take this as the cases arise, instead of probably escalating it to a nation or a nationwide in a nationwide context. Maybe we work with what is happening in this school, what is happening in this school, and therefore how do we handle it? That would be my take maybe at the beginning.
Thank you so much for your response, Mr. Robert. And I would like to ask you this question. Depending or looking at how things are in schools right now, or from the long holidays that kids are from right now, do you think learning will get back to normal immediately, or how long will the normal learning start taking place? Because they are from at a place where they were never used to homeworks, even if there were the how do we call it, the Zoom classes and all that, which were not which were not being attended to by many students in Kenya. So how do you feel, or do you think that this learning, this term, the first term, this term in the school, will they adapt to learning immediately, or teachers will concentrate more in offering guiding and counseling sessions to most of them?
There are two different groups. We have the grade 4, class 8, and then in secondary we have the form 4. At least those groups are already in the mood of learning. Now the rest of the classes are struggling to pick up, because they're the ones who have had the longest break from March until December. It will take time, maybe like 5-6 weeks, before students finally get into the mood of learning. I was talking to a colleague from a neighboring school, and like they have around 120 form 4s, and around 50 of them have not reported to school. So that tells you that the mood for learning is not yet there in so many of the learners. So teachers will have to take some time before the learners get back to where they were when they closed school in March. But now looking at it also, the calendar which has been proposed, having 4 terms in 1 year is in itself going to be a stress factor for some of the learners. Like today, I was talking to the Form 2s. When I told them they are doing their KCSE in 2022, you could have seen the shock on the faces of the boys, because they're like, I am in Form 2. How will I be able to sit for an exam, KCSE exam, in 2022, this November? So that means that the time has actually been so squeezed that the learner is going to get into a lot of stress because there's a lot of work which has to be covered in a very short period of time. So as educators, we need to expect that there's going to be stress on the learner, and therefore they are going to react in ways which we didn't expect. So I think it will take time. It will take time.
Wow, thank you so much. So this means that even the performance or the academic performance will even go down because of the stress that will be caused into learners. And just the other day, just before the schools reopened, I realized that I was walking down the stairs and I found some Form 2 and Form 3, a Form 2 girl and a Form 3 boy saying bye to each other, hugging. I'll miss you so much, but don't worry, I'll come back in April, we'll meet. So, the same way you are telling us that when you approached the Form 2 class, telling them about the exams and all that, and even briefing them about the school calendar. So okay, it brought some stress into them. And now
Yes.
this boy that, okay, for my case, this boy that tells the girl that I'll meet you in April. What do you think? What is this boy trying to think? Okay, right now umeingia class yao na umewambia iko hivi. Huko ameambia dem, I will come in April, so we'll catch up from there. So how do you think you can give an advice to this kid, because he's ready to go and meet the girlfriend after all, after 3 months, and that is what they are used to. So how do you think, how can you approach it as a deputy principal? How do you approach such?
Maybe it would be my duty just to talk to them, such a boy, guide him on how to use his time effectively, because maybe they don't realize that it is only this April that they will have 7 weeks of a break. But thereafter, every break is just 1 week, a maximum of 2 weeks in between the terms. So they need to be prepared for a marathon. So if a child doesn't use their time, holiday time well, then it will become very difficult for them to cope in school. So maybe just to guide them and counsel them and tell them, look, you don't have time, and this is the time you need to study. Maybe your girlfriend, boyfriend thing will come later. Concentrate on what you're supposed to concentrate on right now.
In other words, we mean there is time for everything. So it is now your time to learn, and now time for dating will come, but not now. Concentrate in your studies. So thank you so much. I think that is all that I had for tonight. And let me welcome Mr. Likuyani.
Awesome. I mean, that has been a very candid discussion coming from you. We will quickly go to the comment sections and see what they have to say. So again, Robert, you stay on standby. Probably there are questions for you. And I'm sure the education matters bring in a lot of interest. We have here Godis Aguero, who says, on the issue of reopening of schools, in my opinion, the stakeholders focus on Ministry of Health protocols. Many people overlooked the fact that these kids have been home for over 9 months. These kids, and I use that word very sparingly, have been engaging in different activities that are not for school-based. I think the students should have been prepared psychologically, which Robert mentioned. First, if there will be no immediate intervention at this point, then we should be ready for more than what has just happened. Quick reaction from you, Robert?
Yeah, I think Segero is very right. What we should have done is more of a psychological debriefing before we engage the learners in issues to do with learning. Probably some schools are doing that, others are not doing that. And as he rightly puts it, we mainly focused on health and not on maybe physical health and not mental health, which we should have done. But I think with that, we are learning from our mistakes, and we will infuse that into our curriculum so that we just take both of them side by side, both mental and maybe physical health and the
Awesome.
learning
And there was a
process.
comment that said that what happened to our days, because in their time, and that is, I'm paraphrasing it, which Vicky will help me bring to the screen, we never looked the teachers in the eye, if there's such a word. I mean, we never looked the teachers in the eye. Where did the rod disappear to? Are you still doing corporal punishment? And if not, do you think it has changed how students behave with teachers? Robert?
I think discipline has evolved with time. Right? Yes?
Go ahead, sir.
I'm saying discipline has evolved with time. During our time, there was kiboko, and you would get it fair and square. But now you may not do that. I'm saying you learn to talk to learners much more than you inflict pain. Because when you inflict pain, they say that is child abuse. So there's a lot more which we need to look at. Maybe there is the Children's Act, which prohibits corporal punishment. There is the Education Act, which also does that. So we need to rethink how to discipline our children. Discipline was more communal. Nowadays, it is more of a family thing. Maybe just the dad and mother can discipline their child. But during our times when we were growing up, even your neighbor could discipline you. So
Actually,
really,
they do not
as a
discipline
society, we are
them
losing
anymore.
it
They
in a
reward
way.
them with candy.
But we have a chance to redeem ourselves. But I can, yes. When a child does a mistake, they are called Baba. Come, I'll get you chocolate. I'll get you ice cream, and then they buy for them everything that they need. But I think we need to rethink the way we are disciplining our children, because some of them are becoming wayward in our, and we may pay for it in the future.
We may pay for it in the future. I will take that as a parting shot. Of course, keep engaging us in the comment section. We will be filtering through the comments, and we appreciate each and everyone. Remember to tag, share, and like the page. Now, let's shift gears and involve now Mrs. Social Media. What are the effects of the things that are happening in the ground? And none other is suited to discuss this matter than Victoria Nkatha, and this is time to bring her into the discussion. Victoria, good evening once again, and kindly take us through this session.
So in this session, we are going to shift gears completely into not the children, but us artists and social media effects on matters, politics, and the new changes that we are seeing throughout the globe right now. We're about to also talk about the implications of social media during the COVID-19 pandemic. We're also going to dive into the mental aspects of and effects of the COVID-19 pandemic towards individuals, and what does this mean for us, not only as individuals but as a community. We're also going to look at just a little bit. We've been talking a lot about school, but I do want to as we transition into it, just look into the mental aspects of kids going back to school without proper preparation. So, yes. Thank you. And as we are about to go in, I would like to have Nyanduko tell us a little bit about the effects of social media during COVID-19 and how, as an artist, I mean, we saw the video last week. So how has social media impacted you during this pandemic, Nduko?
Okay. Now I would say that it was bad, and then it became better, because now that is where the shifting gears and adjusting came in. Okay. Now it was bad because we were at a point where we were used to auditions, live auditions. You want to go there physically, you want to go speak your case physically. And you used to going for gigs, you used to cameras, you used to seeing people, and the only way we knew how to connect with other people was actually meeting them. The networking was physical. I leave the house, go to Kenya National Theatre and meet people. But now we're at a point where none of that is happening. You cannot meet other people because you have to stay in the house. Now, we were at a point where you do not know what will happen now in terms of making content, making money, and any other thing. And then it became better because we discovered that you have a YouTube channel. So what happens to that YouTube channel? It means more content. It means more effort in the marketing. It means just putting more time into it and seeing what became of it. And as that evolved, and as we started shifting gears and adjusting to the fact that COVID-19 was here to stay, most people got their channels verified. People who did not have channels before got channels up and running. And it was a whole new set of entertainment, because we now shifted from going to theaters to watch movies. We shifted from going to Carnival to watch shows, and just sitting behind your camera and having your phone and watching a show and having fun and supporting artists from home. And we cannot say that it worked for everyone, but there's quite a good number of people, a good number of social media artists that actually emerged during this COVID-19. We can talk about Flacco, for example. That young man became a hit because social media. And as much as there is so much bad that came with COVID-19, we can say that for the artists that actually, shifted gears and adjusted to the fact that COVID-19 was here to stay, I would say it was a little blessing in disguise. People got endorsements, people got jobs as ambassadors, to talk about COVID-19. So it was bad, and then it got better. Yeah, Victoria.
Now, one of the things that I would like to bring in is the aspect of individuals who have been using social media to a negative level of positive impact, not negative. Just let's go to the positive impact first. I've seen emergence of a lot of people, as you said rightfully, that people have been using social media to do their art. We have people who have shifted towards, you know what, this is my livelihood. I'm not going to stop it. I'm not going to sit and sulk over it. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to go on to social media, find a way to make it work, find a way to entertain my people. And with that, I'm going to continue my livelihood. And this is something that I highly respect. On the other hand, we've seen people like Trump, who have been banished from social media simply because of their negative influence on people during this pandemic. Now, one of the things that I was critically thinking about is the influence that he has, simply because a lot of people are seated at home and they literally have nothing else to do rather than feed into all that is being given on social media in terms of negative aspects. And you also have the story about these kids who have used social media and watched movies and watched a lot of things, probably also online on the internet space, where they end up also committing murder and much more. There has been a balance, well, not a balance, but there has been impact on both aspects, and this is one of the things that we need to tackle, because it all comes down to the mental health aspect of it. And I want to dig deeper into this. But Nick, you had a brilliant idea in terms of what this has been affecting in terms of artists and politics. Do you think that social media has played a huge factor in terms of what is happening right now, especially with Uganda? Nick? Nick, can you hear me? I don't think we can hear Nick. So I'm just gonna move forward, and we're just gonna go into the mental aspects and implications of COVID-19. And here I want us to talk about this, Duko, because it's crazy. Looking at the statistics of the World Health Organization, I noticed something, and the level of adults who are reporting symptoms of, let's start by anxiety, has gone from 29% back in May last year, and it jumped all the way to 35%, 35.2%. And this was in the May, June, July, 2 months. 2 months. Now we can already imagine what has happened right now. And now depression jumped from 24.7%, sorry, to 28%, I believe. And this is for depression. And for the people who are now symptoms of both, you have from 34% to 40%, a whole 6%. This is so huge. Do you understand the level of jump that this is within 2 months? It's crazy. And to think of the fact that what COVID-19 has done in terms of people are isolated at home. People are experiencing loneliness, which is leading to depression simply because they cannot come out. We are social beings. Human beings need to go out, socialize once in a while, simply because we need that. We need to be around people. What's even more alarming is now the percent of adolescents ages, which is 12 to 17, who are showing signs and suffering from anxiety and depression, anxiety or depression. Now, at this moment, we are at we are playing at the 12 percentage and 20 percentage, where before back in a few years ago, this was at 6%. Now, this has crazily increased. And going on to the school factor, do we understand the level of anxiety and depression that these kids are going through? And we mentioned the lack of preparation in terms of kids going back to school. We have not placed proper strategies to be able to help kids with this. I mean, kids are going back to school, some have to repeat classes. Do we know in the competitive society that we live in Kenya, where kids need to be at their top level best at all time, what they suffer in terms of being taken back? For some, it's a huge shame. They don't understand that this is happening all over. What they see is that I have to repeat a class. Is it because I'm stupid? That is what they're seeing, and that is what they're feeling. So how are we trying to even make sure that this is in place? Mr. Roberts said that we're trying to figure out how to include this in our curriculum. But how are we doing this, sir?
Victoria, I think we are in this mess, all of us together. And as you rightly put, we have no idea how many students, how many children are affected psychologically. We don't have any idea how many are going through depression or anxiety. And we're just groping in the dark. And if we were honest with ourselves as a country, we would engage institutions which are able to do this and provide the statistics for us per school. And from that, we are able to deal with the situation more effectively. But that said and done, I think it is high time the educators go out of their way to try and see what they can do in order to help the learners. That is the best we can do for now. But the challenge is there. You gave a statistic of 39, 40%. Or is it on depression or on anxiety? One of them.
It's on both.
When you look at it,
it's on both anxiety and depression. People who are showing signs of either of them.
If you actually look at it as 40%, it looks such a small population. But just consider that out of every 10 people, 4 are depressed. That is such a huge population. So if 4 people out of 10 are depressed, then it means nearly half the population is depressed. So who is going to help the other? So we need to handle this matter as fast as possible. The issue of psychological health needs to be handled. And I think those people in the world of counseling and psychology need to come in so fast and offer solutions to this country. Otherwise, we will get into a very serious trouble in the coming months.
And I think you just called me out on this one. Actually, I just noticed that it just got switched to me again. But it's actually very true what you're saying. But now, one of the things that we never noticed, as I always say, some of us usually took these issues as she does our zungu. And for those who don't know Swahili, we used to take this as people troubles for people who are whiter than we are. And we never knew that depression, stress, anxiety, and all these things are for us. We always are taught how to be strong. We're always taught how to pull through. We're always taught how to stand by. We're always taught how to, simama kimwanaume, be strong as a woman, and so on and so forth. Teaching our kids how to, do all these things. But now in this generation where we really are seeing a lot of things happening. I mean, Sazaku, Jikazaki, Mwanaume were in those times where there weren't a lot of things happening, where people had, I would say, I would dare and go in and say lesser problems to some degree, where they had lesser influence from social media, they had lesser influence from the world out there. People just knew their life as simple as possible. But now people are getting so much pressure. And on top of that, boom, a pandemic. You understand? So people don't even know how to act. And we haven't really paid attention to people's psychological needs and mental health issues. And now we are realizing that this needs to be a sector that we really pay a lot of attention to, because the world isn't as it was before. Therefore, when we talk about psychologists, we have to stop overpricing simply because there's no demand for it, simply because we're not pushing people to go on ahead and seek the psychological help that they need. Now, as a teacher, Nduko, what is your go-to plan for this?
I honestly do not think that any of us were ready.
And she just
now,
froze as I asked her the question.
Did I?
Sorry.
Did I freeze?
Oh no, then I'm the one who had the issue. Sorry.
Yeah, I thought so. No, when we were in campus, and Robert can attest to this, psychology was a unit that everyone had to take, and we did not realize the impact that this small thing would come and have on the kids. And most of the time, we're in school thinking that these kids are just acting out, they're just being rebellious, they're just being adolescents. But most of the time, it is a cry for help, and we do not see it as that. And it is even worse right now. And it might look like a joke that we have kids. Nick can tell you, we have kids like Triomio, an artist, had to go back to school, was used to the fame. Now, what happens when they go back to school? They were all used to social media and singing and being in the limelight. And now a kid has to go back to school and be a regular kid and be at the level of everyone else. We have a kid like Robert said, who was at home and was someone's husband, and was used to giving orders and telling people we're eating at 9. And now he's back in school and is being told tunakula 5:30, young man, and kneel down and all that. And now you want to tell this young person that you just came back and you want to bombard them with knowledge and books and all that. It is going to take time. And it is unfortunate that most educators do not know that it is going to take time. It would have been easier if a little time was put aside for the psychological orientation of these kids back into the system. The class 8s and the form 4s and the class 4s might have it a little bit easier because they had time. They had time to come back and get used to the system. And now we have kids who have absolutely no idea what has been going on for 9 months. All they can do is sing and tell you everything they've watched on Netflix. And now you want to bring them back in school, and Mr. Robert is telling them run. They have no idea when the last time they ran was. This is a running institution. Why are you telling me to run? I've been walking and then you have a teacher like Mr. Robert, maybe one of your BOM teachers was doing kazi kwa vijana with your students there, and now they are back, and now you want to tell this teacher to tell the same students, and they're like, bro, tulikuwa tunalipwa na wewe juzi hapa, what are you telling me, you know? So it will take time, and it needs to be given time, and it needs to be talked about. Long are the days when we thought that depression and all these things were white people problems, like Victoria said. These are problems that we have. We have kids who have struggles from home, kids who lost people due to the pandemic, you know, who lost relatives and friends, and no one talked to them, and no one really focuses on the kids most of the time. It is usually the spouse, and it is sad. No one thinks about the children and the effect that these things have on them. Now we have a situation where we have to go back to the drawing board, bring the children on board, and actually talk to them about what is happening and tell them this is the new normal. We have to get used to it, you know, and understand them when they make mistakes, Mr. Robert. It is not always about, you know, you did this, you have to go to the corner and think about your life. Sometimes just send them to guidance and counseling for the fun of it. And the guidance and counselors in schools, they need to take up these things. It is not just for the giving out of sanitary towels and soap and taking some home with you, you know. It is, sometimes it's about listening, and it is not listening to find Udaku to say the stuff from during tea. It is actually listening for the purpose of trying to help these kids. And you as a teacher, it can start with me and you know, you being in the school at the moment. I'm not in a school at the moment, but it starts with you and you identifying that this kid needs my help, and it will not take the entire staff room to help this particular kid. Help one kid. You will not know it. You'll probably have helped a whole community. You'll have helped a whole family, because that will mean if he was planning to go kill the entire family, maybe you would have saved a life. Where's Victoria? I am done talking. Mr. Robert, what do you have to add on what I have said as we wait for Victoria to come back?
I think you have said it all. And just to add, I would like to say that the teachers are trying their best. The psychology classes at the university are now coming to use, because probably we had that information, but we had just kept it at the back of our mind, and we didn't know we will one day use it. I think this is the right time for teachers to use that knowledge they gained. And as you said, every counselor should provide a listening ear, and there should be that confidentiality, because if you break the confidentiality with the first child, the second child won't come, and therefore you will have lost a whole generation. I've seen somebody asking on social media that there are some students are making a lot of money from gold mining in some county. I don't know which county that is. Maybe would it be Kolomani in Kakamega County, like that? And I think it is time we taught our young ones that making money is not a problem. How to use that money and on what is the issue. Because I have one of my students who was, during the period they were at home, this young man was doing online marketing. And by the time he was coming back to school, he had made close to 300,000 shillings from online marketing. When he came to school, he came and told me, Mwalimu, I have money in my bank account. I want you to help me to sort out my academic life first, so that I get my mind back to school, so that I can study and get my certificate. Because I realize and I know that money is not everything. And he actually quoted somebody. He said, Nameless is a very serious musician, but Nameless is an architect. He quoted Wahoo. Wahoo is a musician, a very good mathematician. Caroline Mutoko, a very good radio personality, media personality, a mathematician. So he says that it pays to go to school. You don't have to look for money and forget to go to school. So somebody near that village should tell those young men and women, get money, but go to school and get your certificate, and a good certificate at that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Mr. Roberts. And speaking of social media, Nick, I asked you a question initially about Bobby Wine and Uganda, the effects of social media and Trump. Can you please let us know, as a beautiful, beautiful artist, you are dealing with this every single day. What are the effects of social media in terms of artists, and how are artists also affecting social media during this COVID period, please?
If you can get me. Yeah, well, in Qatar, to begin with, I must mention that social media is really a gold mine. Like the good teacher, Mr. I forgot his name, mentioned. So I just put up a small example. I have a nephew who, within this period where schools were closed for Corona, he managed to get to YouTube and learn a few tips about editing just from tutorials. And by November of 2020, the little boy is only in Form 3, had made close to 80,000 bob from online jobs, editing, short videos, 3 minutes, 2 minutes. But the number of work that the guy had done from the period he started checking out tutorials to the period that he was sharing this with me, he had made actually 80,000. That really challenged me because I have gone to school to learn editing. I'm a professional editor, but I haven't made such amount of money from online editing. So really, social media is a gold mine. And, talking about how it affects artists, I think this point is general because apart from just affecting artists, it affects every one of us. First of all, we never knew we wanted social media before it existed. Life was normal, everything was going on normally. But now, without social media, although, here it is, and uh, I was just trying to think about what would happen if all social media platforms were shut down right now. Studies actually show that we'd be much happier. I've used Twitter, for example, as my, to argue my point about how we would be happy or not if social media was on or off. Well, Twitter is full of savage people. You put up a post, and it's like guys were just waiting for you to put up that post so that they can teach you. It's crazy. Guys will actually make you feel worthless on Twitter. I took a break from Twitter and actually noticed that my stress levels went down. This is because Twitter is number one for breaking news. You'll actually see breaking news first on Twitter before you see it on CNN or Al Jazeera or KTN or NTV. Particularly in Africa, you're in Europe. I can't talk about your situation. I don't know about your situation. But in Africa, the social, political, geopolitical situation is just depressing. And those who are not stuck in power have a short period to deliver, but they are confused within the short period of time. So when you go to Twitter, your stress levels just skyrocket. So studies actually show that if we lack social media, if you just took a break from social media, you'd actually be happy. We'd actually find new ways to date also. Because right now, it's actually like everyone is trying to get, their spouses from social media. You're trying to impress. Snapchat and Instagram has become a platform for floss mode. But also, we'd have a harder time advocating for our rights. Come on, look at how the campaigns in Uganda have been conducted. It reached a point Bobby Wine had to 100% rely on guys having their cameras on to reduce police brutality. And she actually took it as an initiative and told guys that, look, you have to have your cameras on all the time. The police don't want to see cameras on. So if you have your cameras on, you beat them at their own game. So I think we also have a hard time, fighting for our rights if social media was switched off. And so it's actually a platform for us to engage and discuss our governance and how, people that we've put in places of power actually manage our resources. Yeah, so just to, cut my dialogue short, I think social media is here for the better of our society, but also we really have to engage with social media with utmost discipline.
And we have to engage wisely. That is what I would have said then, just to finish. But it's very, very important. I mean, I am completely in agreement of what Nick is putting across, because social media can really be a catalyst to stress, to depression, to a lot of things if not carefully taken. It's like a drug, basically. You see, if you're here, please watch Social Dilemma on Netflix, because social media can really be a drug. Is a drug that you keep on taking. You take. The more platforms you get, the more you get into that. However, let me just say, we are not going into that topic today, because that's our topic for next week. So shifting gears back to how we're going to handle all the new challenges that we are now facing in terms of COVID-19 and social media, in terms of kids going back to school and the political atmosphere. And for that, let's bring back Ellie, and we bring back Noreen, and we bring back Nyanduko, and I'll give Mr. Robert and Mr. Nick a rest, because I want these individuals to now tell me, because we are in a situation where we need to move forward. There are new challenges at hand. How do we deal with them? We said shifting gears and adjusting to new challenges. So now tell me, what are you going to tell the person who has lost their job, who is about to who is sending their kids to school right now? We saw from a parent who was very, very scared in terms of kids sharing masks, kids going out to play with each other, kids doing this and that, and they're gonna come back home to us, and we might not be able to handle COVID. They might be able to do so, but we might not be able to handle it. How do we adjust to all these things? And more so, on top of that, the mental health aspect. So we just take a round like this. Ellie, you're here on my side.
When it comes to matters, I don't know if you can hear me, Inyanduko and Victoria, but I was saying, as you engage in this topic, I mean, I find we cannot disconnect much from the social media, and that's why I'm happy that we're going to handle it come next week in depth. However, let me go back to what we're talking about right now. It is important that as individuals, we realize that the dynamics of life have changed. And if you want to witness that, you should see how we've talked about Uganda, how Bobby Wine transitioned from a musician into a politician. So ideally, I'm trying to lay ground and say it is important for us to nurture talents at the much we can. I keep seeing things flipping, so I don't understand what's happening. But yeah, so back to my train of thought. I was saying it is important for us to nurture talents. And I think somebody like DJ Nick will agree with me. We saw a piece that he did, a voiceover of the chicken that decided not to give up. So ideally, despite the conditions of life that we are going through, we have to be more innovative. We have to think more outside the comfort zones. And the biggest way to tap into this is through talent enhancement. The likes of Kina Nyanduko, if you've been watching close, you realize she's been trending for the last 2-3 weeks with some interesting video of an SDA girl that changes her way of life from Monday to Saturday. I mean, these are things that are interesting in this space of social media. And therefore, I'm asking us to just try to change and try to adapt to the new way of making a living. For matters in terms of COVID-19, it's something that has affected how we live. And this is something that is not going anywhere anytime soon. And therefore, on my closing remark on that is, we must and we need to adopt the new ways. How? I cannot give the solutions, but when, this is the time.
Go on to Nick. Nick had something to say actually, and I want him to finish in.
No, Vicky, you can carry on. Eli, I wanted to ask something. I wanted to ask, do you think without social media we would be much more anonymous? And do you think without social media we would compare ourselves less to other people? Because even looking at what these young students, and allow me to relate the two, about social media and, some of these violent acts that we've been seeing from these students. I want to believe that these students have actually been inspired by what they've either watched on Netflix, or they've actually watched on YouTube, or they've actually interacted with on social media. So they are actually comparing themselves to a star of some sort from a movie, or a fictional story that they read online, or something that they read that is actually true but happened somewhere else. So I actually think that, if we just regulated our social media, not by government policy or by the social media company themselves clamping us down, but from a common sense point of view and from an interaction point of view, me and you, the end users, if we would actually just limit how we use social media, I think we would less compare ourselves to others, and we would be less anonymous. Like, you actually have
if I can respond to you, Nick. If I can respond to you, Nick, I mean, you bring in a very important perspective and interesting for that matter. Where I stand, I agree with all the sentiments you've put forth. For example, the comparisons among individuals in terms of society. We see recently, we learned about a new word in town called, I cannot even mention it, doppelbangers. And you see the urge for people to actually create a non-existent kind of relationship. And this is all in the need. And they came out and said they were trying to create content. So it questions and it begs and leaves a question of what exactly are we doing as creatives by trying to create platform and content that is consumable, that is positive and changing minds in a positive way in the society. So we have a responsibility as creatives. We have responsibilities as content creators. And having said that, I want to ask the rest of us, as Nick has asked, should we do self-governance? And there's one person that talks much about self-governance and trying to equate the moral fabric about this is Dr. Ezekiel Mutua. How I wish Nkata can get him to come on this seat and talk about these matters next week. We will try reach him out. The thing is, as much as we are going into the developed world, we have to remember there's something called the moral fabric of a society. And that is where, as artists, as content creators, we must put our effort into. Let us not just chase clout for the sake of chasing it. but let us create content that is changing people's mind and perspective in a positive way. We cannot be emphasizing anymore about what Netflix is doing. And I mean, they have all the rights of streaming whatever they are streaming. But then at the end of the day, as a parent back at home, what do you allow your children to consume? We bring it down to a house level, and a house level brings it to the society level. So we cannot make these things independent from one another. A house level, the way you manage your children in your house is the same result you expect outside your confines of home. That's all I can say for that, Nick.
I don't want us to go so much into the social media aspects because I really don't want us to pull in next week into this week. But then going back again to the question asked in terms of what do you think are the ways forward in terms of this? I would really love to hear Noreen and Duko on this aspect. How are we going to adjust to the new challenges? Is this our new reality? And if yes, then how do we fix all these issues that are coming in with our new reality? Duko and Noreen, if you may, please.
No.
At the beginning,
Okay.
sorry, Nyanduko. At the beginning of last year of 2020, we all heard about coronavirus in 2019, and now it kicked in 2020 March. That is in Kenya. So we were supposed to be washing hands every time, like frequently, which was not a normal thing, but we adjusted to it. Things like masks. We only saw doctors in hospital putting on their face masks, but it came to hit us, but that this is the time for us to put them on just to prevent, in a one way or another, to prevent coronavirus. Again, we are looking at hand sanitizers and all that. We need to sanitize every time. We need to do spacing and everything. But now, this is something that has hit us, and now it is something we need to live with it. We need to know that okay, it has come, and now we have no any other way out. Until the vaccine has been proven to be working or something, we have to do this. So the best way to adjust to this, now the schools have reopened, and now the kids have to get used to the new routine, like wearing the face mask while at school and sanitizing, washing hands, all those things. First, we need to approach them like, okay, we need to talk to them. Like that is what we need to do in the first place, because you need to tell them the reason why they are putting this on. As much as they have watched news, they have had time with their parents, they have had time to see what has been happening all this time while they were at home. But now this is a school environment. They're used to be socializing with one another, maybe through play activities or any other activities in school. Right now, you're telling them, okay, we've been doing this, but due to this, we are not going to do things the way we used to do. So, like, I feel like talking to them and letting them know what is happening, it is the best way to approach it and adjust to the challenge. Yeah, it may be a challenge right now, but remember, there is light at the end of the tunnel. Like it is a time for us to go through this. It is a season, and every time we have seasons for everything. This is a season for coronavirus. It is a season for all these things to happen around us, but now we have to accept and adjust to every situation that comes. I don't know what Nyanduko has to say about this.
Now, I will bring us a little bit back into the education setting, into the school setting. And as educators, Noreen, myself, and Robert, who are on this set, and there are others who are probably watching, this is where the psychology bit comes in. This is where we start to understand what the learners are going through. And this is where we put ourselves in a place where we can promise these kids confidentiality, in a place where they can confide in us and actually tell us and speak about what is happening. You know, if we become learner friendly and allow them to actually meet us in the middle and tell us what is happening, it will be easier. It can get easier, you know, when we make it known, when we make it knowledge, public knowledge to the learners that it is okay to be depressed, it is okay to go through these things, but it is also okay to come out and talk about it. There is no shame in having a bad day. There is no shame, you know, in feeling some type of way about certain situations. And the moment we start talking about it, the moment we start these conversations in schools, the moment we start the conversations about suicide and depression and, you know, and all these challenges that came in with the COVID-19, it will be easier. It can get easier. The problem is starting the conversations. And it starts, this is something I say on every show every week. Starts with you and me. It starts with Robert in Kiambu, starts with me here, starts with Noreen in Nairobi, and changing one life at a time, touching one learner at a time. And, you know, speaking to one learner impacts on how they interact with their friends and how those friends will interact with. It is a ripple effect. It creates a ripple effect because it will eventually get to the nitty-gritties of what these kids are going through. It is okay to, tell them that it is okay to go through stuff, but it is also okay to talk about them. Let us not be too quick to assume that kids are just acting out because they are adolescents and all that. These kids need a listening ear. And if we provide that and confidentiality and the psychological counseling that they deserve, if it becomes too much for one of us, for a teacher to handle, for an educator to handle, refer them to someone who can help them, because sometimes it's just about seeking help. Seek help, speak about these things, speak about them. You know, the more we talk about them, the more we make it look like there are things that people have. We have people who have, you know, overcome them. Show them the statistics, tell them about the statistics about people who have overcome such things, and it will get easier. From this point on, what is the worst that could happen? Really? What is the worst that could happen? It can only get better, and we have to adjust and shift our mindsets into this is our new normal at the moment. You know, we started washing hands, we started wearing face masks, we're getting used to it, and you know, it could not be a bad thing because sometimes you get away with not doing your makeup, and you know, it's a good thing sometimes. So it is a silver lining to every bad situation. There is a silver lining. Teacher Robert.
Yeah, you've said it together with Noreen that this is actually a new normal and we must accept it as it is, because we don't see it changing maybe in the next 5 or so years. We expect to stay
I think we actually lost. Sorry?
This is what I was saying earlier, Vicky. I was telling you that this is our new normal. We'll get used to it. You see the way Mr. Robert is having his thingy do this. Now, tell me how it would have been easy to have Zoom classes. That's what I like note as we wait for him to get this thing to work. Yeah, Victoria, you were saying.
I was saying another thing. I fully agree with everyone. There is the whole the COVID is here to stay, and with or without the vaccine, it's gonna have some side effects which would definitely stay with us for life. In terms of hygiene, one of the things that I'm gonna emphasize on is people's hygiene. People have really gone up in terms of their hygiene, and I'm pretty sure that social distancing will always be there in terms of people just staying away, because you already know that a pandemic has come. It might come again, so keep your distance. I don't want to be the first in terms of getting this. Whatever you eat, please eat it at your own risk. If you don't know ni kuku na ngombe, if you're out there eating bats, please stay there, because you never know what people are eating out here. So you stay there, I stay here, and we distance ourselves, to be honest. And then at the end of the day, people are gonna be very strict in terms of their hygiene and staying away from people. You see how people stand here in line when you're shopping. People are literally breathing down your neck. Yeah, people are gonna be very, very sensitive towards these things. And then another thing that's really gonna change, I believe, is the psychological focus, people are going to be really, really high in terms of mental health. And I believe that a lot of us are really going to go in and really advocate for mental health. We have different institutions, different places, such as Responding to Life, where we're really focusing on this. And a lot of people are really going to gear up and educate themselves in terms of mental health. And this also helps us in terms of educating our kids in school, educating our kids at home, telling your child that it's okay not to be okay and you need to talk, you need to let it out. Instead of telling a boy child, lazima ukue mwanaume, or you must be a boy. Come on, you're a man. There's no such thing. It's about really taking into focus that we really are living in a different world, in a very, very different world. The pandemic has made us see a lot of things. Censoring what your kids are watching, censoring how your kids are relating to each other, and being very on board in terms of morals, and also figuring out what are you feeding your child and what is the child also getting from outside. Another aspect is that we've been brought into the power of social media and the power of individuals once they come together in unity for a cause. We've seen this with Bobby Wine, we've seen this in America, we've seen this, and how much we can be able to affect so many things. You see, before the COVID-19, before the pandemic, we were so fixed on making money, we were so fixed on minding our business, we were so fixed that we were blind to main issues, really important issues that have risen once the pandemic has come. And I believe that a lot of us have really opened our eyes towards these things. A lot of us are speaking against the government and the policies that are being put into place, and we're seeing that things are not being done well enough. Hence, how can we be able to contribute towards things being done well enough? These are the things that we all are probably thinking about and we all are ready to implement. I saw a comment in terms of people getting businesses, which we're also going to talk about on the 29th. But there's been a huge rise in terms of how people are doing their work. People are using resources that they didn't even know that they had, because everybody was so used to going to work and coming back home, going to work, coming back home, and we didn't even realize that we could be able to do a lot of things. So for me, how we're adjusting, there's so much that is about to change, and you're either on the bandwagon or you're not. Otherwise, you'll be left pre-COVID, to be honest, and then you're not going to be able to shift. We need to shift, as Nduko rightfully said, shift your gears and adjust to the new things, because with challenges come solutions, and these are the solutions that we're now putting in place. So back to you, Mr. Roberts. Sorry, I think your microphone or something went off.
Yeah, something went. I just want to say, I think it's an eye opener, and as you rightly put it, if you don't shift your gears, you'll be left pre-COVID, and pre-COVID looks like 10 years ago, yet it's only a few months ago, because so many things have changed. The way we look at things, the way we do things have changed, and we need to change with the times. I think that is what is going to help us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Roberts. Now, I'm going to just quickly pull in Eli and Nick, because we're just going to go round off, and I will give back the whole thing to Mr. Eli, who has been in the background. So,
well,
Eli,
they say ukiona Kobe amenyamaza anatunga sheria. I've been doing a lot of that behind the scenes, so a lot of new laws or regulations to come in the next cast. Anyway, that was on a lighter note. So we have had this discussion. We have decided and walked through the intrigues of setting goals and shifting gears and trying to find out what is it that is best for us. So as we close, there are a few things I would like us to look at, and the things are, what do we have to do next week? But before we do what we have to do next week, we have a small presentation that will help us transist and then go to the next level of this discussion as we wind out.
Nchi yetu hakuna justice. Umeona wa serikali wanatupiga, wanatufanya kama sisi kwa waizi. So there's no justice at all. However, tunavumilia kwa sababu tunajua that the law is on our side.
Digital service tax is a tax that has been introduced for people who offer digital marketplaces. There are two types of digital marketplaces. There are digital services where a company offers those services that can only be done through electronic means. And there are also people who connect buyers and sellers by providing what we call a digital platform. So basically those are the main things or the main platforms which are liable to digital service tax. And of course, it's also liable to those who are residents and those who are non-residents. Where non-residents are people who don't have a physical presence in Kenya, and they are also not incorporated in Kenya through our register of companies, while the residents are people who are incorporated in Kenya, or they are people who have a certificate of compliance from the register of companies, and they have a physical presence in Kenya. DST is chargeable at 1.5% of the gross transaction value. And when you look at the word gross transaction value, as a provider of digital services, you can either be doing intermediation, where you have a digital marketplace connecting buyers and sellers, which in any case you will be earning commission. So in that case, DST will be chargeable on 1.5% of the commission. But if you provide services which are digital in nature, they are digital services, then the whole consideration which you receive for providing those services will be subjected to the 1.5%. When the law was first muted, the understanding was that we will use agents to collect DST. However, after getting stakeholder comments, and you people are very good stakeholders, you advised that we use the self-assessment regime. That means every digital service provider will be able to register, file, and pay the digital service tax. So it will be administered using the self-assessment model, and we have also instituted a simplified framework where you will have, you will not be labor in registering and accounting for DST.
Well, there you have it. That is the DST, and this is a topic Nick was to cover tonight. But due to the rearrangement of how things will flow, we will have this covered in the topic of finances. That is on the 29th of this month. So stay here for many more news. And I played a clip prior to this on what is happening in Uganda. And we hope that at the end of the day, when the winner of this so hotly contested election will be announced, we will continue to enjoy the peace that has prevailed. And we hope and wish Uganda the very best. Parting shot from myself tonight, we have heard what the panelists had to say. Now it's us to actionize those very important keynotes that they have raised. Thank you so much, Mr. Robert, for being on board tonight, and back to you, Nyanduko. I know you're lazy to mute your microphone off, kindly.
Eli, I told you to have control over my microphone. I keep forgetting.
Go ahead, please.
Now, my parting shot tonight will be, it is okay not to be okay. It is okay to actually want to talk about things. And this is our new normal. And the sooner we get used to the fact that this is here to stay, unless something comes up. But before then, this is our new normal. And the sooner we get that in our head, the sooner we will move. Because we need to innovate, we need to progress, we need to move. And we need to move as soon as yesterday. So it is upon educators and everyone else, mostly educators. I speak from a teacher's point of view because that is where most of my knowledge is really. talk to these students. Talk to them. I'm not currently teaching, and I really feel bad about that because they need people to talk to them. Involve their peers, even if it involves bringing someone they can relate to. Bring those people in school. We have funds. You have funds that would have been used for drama festivals otherwise. Use these funds to get people to talk to these kids because they really need it. And if that does not happen, these kids are just a ticking time bomb and it's going to explode. Mark these words I have said today. If someone does not do something about these kids, they're just a ticking time bomb. So you as a teacher, as a disciplinarian, really find just start from Kiambu, just do one school at a time. Tell a friend to tell another. The way we do it on social media, the way we make videos go viral, let us make mental health awareness viral, and let us shift gears and adjust to the fact that COVID is here to stay. Thank you. I'll give it to you, Robert.
Yes, I want to finish my remarks by saying that we need to change the way we do things. And as educators, we need to go out of our way and make the learning environment as conducive as possible, and more especially for mental health of the learner. Have a blessed night.
Hey, I wish the government would have allowed activities to just go on in school with some moderation. For instance, like for drama festivals, they will just allow schools that are performing to be in the venue alone, and the halls to have, social distance, and same with sports. I mean, if we've been having tournaments going on in December, sponsored by politicians, and guys have been, breaking the COVID protocols. I mean, why can't we have proper protocols and have these kids engage in things that would try ease their minds? I think that is something that the ministry needs to think about seriously right now that we are talking about having a discussion about mental health with these kids. And coming to, us adults and people who enjoy social media, and, us guys who have our own ambitions and goals for the year, uh, forging forward. I think it would be best if we just relax and took a chill pill, and for it would be better for everyone to understand that everything.
I think we lost Nick there. So I will pass it to Noreen to give us her parting shot as we take it back to Ellie. Noreen, please.
Change can be painful, and that is what we are all going through right now. And in a change, we realize challenges. The challenges are not there to make us weak, they are there to make us stronger and better. Have a good night.
I think you
Noreen.
forgot
So
me.
Ellie.
I think you
I'm
forgot that I
sorry.
was here.
I thought you actually did say something. So I will take it to Victoria before I give it back to Ellie. I'm so sorry, darling.
No, it's okay, guys. It's very, very important. Everything that has been said today, it's very, very important in terms of gearing up for the new year. Sorry, for the year ahead. It's no longer new, actually. With everything that's going on, it feels like we've lived through June already. But everything that is being said is very, very important for the year ahead. And I hope for a fact that we are really going to take every single thing seriously, and we're going to adjust to the new challenges, because they are not about stop sitting down and waiting for COVID to pass. Stop sitting down and waiting for things to get better, because they will only get better if you stand up and you adjust to what we have at hand. Mind your mental health, because that's the first thing that's going to gear you up for success. Otherwise, you are going to fail miserably if you do not think about yourself first, and if you do not gear yourself up first mentally. With that said, I hope that you're enjoying and you have really taken in what we're about to say, or rather what we've said. And for next week, we're going to speak on social media. And once the flyer is out, you will see our guest, because it's a very interesting guest. Aside from that, on the 29th of January, we have a beautiful show geared up for you, where we're going to talk matters, finances, and social media in terms of our finances as well. We're really looking into social media this last two, actually three sessions, because it really has stirred a lot of interest in terms of what has been happening. And next week we're going to talk about the influencer life, the social media aspects of what to expect from us, which we also have turned or rather touched upon this this session. So we really are going to discuss that, and we really are going to have a good one. So with that said, my name is Victoria Katha from Responding to Life and Art in Heart, and I bid you a good evening. Back to you, Ellie. Thank you.
Hey,
Oh, I think Nick wants to say something.
Bye-bye, Nkata. You already bid us all goodbye. I'll cut short with that last sentiment. I just really wish to say that to everyone who's watching us, who's had a chance to watch this show, let us be confident with our goals this year. We all can achieve what we set out to do. Marcus Garvey said, without confidence, you're twice defeated in the rest of life. So let us be confident and let us go out there and take our win. Good night, everybody. Thank you for having me, guys.
Indeed. Go out there
It's been a
and
nice show.
take the win. Nick
Good
could
night,
not
everybody.
have summarized any better. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to the end of tonight's show with all my guests and panelists that have been kind enough to show up tonight. My gratitude to Victoria and Katha all the way in Denmark. I want to pass my regards to Noreen Abata in Nairobi, Kenya. And of course, we have Nyanduko Nyabuto, who has told me tonight she's launching in Nairobi. Very, very thankful for having you tonight. And DJ Nick, you made some openings here and there, and I know you've had the challenges. However, thank you for keeping put and staying put. And of course, being with us in this show as you do your grill down in Nairobi, Kenya. And of course, I will not forget our guest panelist, who was Mr. Robert Atiaya from Kiambu High School, Deputy Principal. Thank you very much for your contribution, sir. We do appreciate your time on board. As I close this week, I want to wish you a very, very great night. If you are in the night time, if it's still morning or afternoon, wherever you're watching from, have a great one. And of course, I leave you with this interesting mix from DJ Nick. Once again, Nick, tonight is your night.